Hi, all. These are generally conversations between adults after the children have left the table. The language can be spicy and the subjects can get saucy. So if you're ready, this is the Southern Fork. Unscripted kitchen chats and also studio chats with some of the most interesting voices in the culinary South. I'm Stephanie Burt, a food and beverage writer who travels with her fork to write for a variety of publications, from magazines you might have on your coffee table to the website you love to visit for your favorite recipes. And I'm inviting you to come behind the scenes with me to get to know the people who make this Southern culinary landscape so special. I'm always hungry for the next bite, thirsty for that next sip, and ready for the next conversation. Let's dig in. The Southern Fork is presented by Townsend Automotive in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Well, it's beach season, shrimp season, farm stand season, and ice cream season, and so you know what that means. It's road trip season. I'm out on the road sharing good eats and drinks and introducing you to the people behind them. So if you're inspired to get out here too, but your vehicle is less than inspiring, please consider purchasing your next road trip ride from Townsend Automotive. Celebrating 49 years serving West Alabama, this company has been extending its reach so that you don't even have to be in the Tuscaloosa area to purchase a car from them. Nationwide vehicle delivery service is available for Southern Fork listeners, and it's something that makes buying just the right new or certified pre-owned vehicle even easier. Visit townsendhonda.com for current inventory. Or, of course, if you're in West Alabama, stop in. Townsend Automotive always salutes local entrepreneurs, from restaurateurs to podcasters, and they welcome you to be part of a community that does the same. Roca, located in the Tampa Heights neighborhood of Tampa, Florida, is Chef Bryce Bonsak's love letter to the family who he worked for and lived with during his tutelage and pilgrimage in Italy. Showcasing fresh handmade pasta, mozzarella pulled tableside, and dry-aged meats, Bryce creates an ever-changing menu influenced by both classical recipes and modern techniques. A Tampa native, his culinary background includes multiple years of experience working in 2 Michelin-starred New York City restaurants, Blanca and Corton, and Roca is his first restaurant as chef and owner. It received the first and only 10 out of 10 rating from Tampa Bay Times' restaurant critic, and most recently, Bryce followed in his mentor's footsteps when Roca received a highly coveted Michelin star as well as a Bib Gourmand. The vibe is lively, the seasons and the local bounty are always represented on the plate, and the service is some of the best I've ever had. But the pasta is magic. Welcome to the Southern Fork.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you so much for feeding me so well the other night. I mean, I knew that was going to be, but I have to tell you, rolling in, I was more of a pizza than a pasta person. And obviously, I've been doing this for close to 20 years. I've had amazing pasta from, Italy and all other places,
Sure.
But I feel differently about pasta after having your pasta.
Oh, wow.
It was a big deal.
We made the decision from way before Roca was going to be open that there's a lot of temptation for Italian restaurants to do both. Mm-hmm. And in Italy, you rarely see that. And I think it's good to be focused on one thing rather than the other. I love pizza too. Mm-hmm. Hopefully there's a pizza restaurant in the works. I think there actually is. And it's okay if you have a pizza restaurant with a couple pastas on it, But I think once you start to try to do both, they kind of waters down what you're trying to do.
Right, because it takes the same flour or
more or less,
and pulls it in completely different directions.
It's a totally different thing.
Yeah, and I come from a baking background, so I understand pizza more than pasta. And I know it's shocking, but as you can tell from my accent, I'm Southern, so that means we don't. Traditionally, I haven't had good pasta. It was just really, really overcooked. But all of it was so delicious, which is an understatement. Do you get tired of hearing that? Because
I'm not very good about taking compliments.
I did notice that the other day. It was pretty effusive.
At least I've been told that. But no, I don't think it'll ever get old because when someone complains about the pasta, it hurts my soul.
Yeah. I also think about this, when you're cooking at such a high level, but when we're eating, it is that visceral reaction. Like I'm going, people have listened to the intro. They know specific feelings that I have about this restaurant and about your work. But it took me a while to process that. My first reaction was, this is real good, or just like, whoa, or something like that. And it's embarrassing sometimes for a diner to say that to a chef of your caliber that you've cooked at such a high level, because we feel like we should have something like more cerebral to say.
I don't think that's so. I think as long as you're smiling and you're being nourished, I think that's all we need.
Great. Let's get into one of the best salads that I ever had. And I would have never ordered it. So the other night, what happens a lot, Southern Fork listeners, is Bryce and I have already had a conversation, but through food. So when I come into a place, I want you to talk to me about what you want me to see so that we can begin to converse. And you picked a salad. I'm not a huge eggplant person.
An eggplant salad's not normally
no one ever goes
the first thing
yeah.
that says like that's what I'm craving in my back of my mind. But eggplant are in season. My mom's actually the ones that you had. We got from the purveyor, but my mom's got some growing, so we'll try to get those on the menu soon once we got enough of them. And she can't keep up with all of it. We're a massive restaurant, obviously, but I just think eggplant's obviously very iconic Italian, but we don't want to do just eggplant Parmesan or whatever it is. And we've done a hot appetizer for 3 years running where during the summers we would do an eggplant and peppers dish with bagna cauda and hazelnuts and stuff like that. And every year was different. It sort of took on more nuances or just had a different look and a little bit more of a different flavor profile, but more or less it was the same. And then I just decided this year we're going to break away from that. So we did a cold appetizer instead.
But there was so much texture. Were those cucumbers compressed with salt water?
A little bit of salt water, or we sort of make a brine with a little bit of palm sugar, salt, a little bit of fish sauce, a little bit of orange peel.
There was texture. The culantro was so fun. It was fried. Right?
Yeah, fried, and there's also a bunch of chiffonade and dressed around it too.
And then Heron Farm
and also
seed
there's basil seeds in there that were dressed with culantro oil. So there's lots of different culantro in there.
So how do basil seeds, number one, they're really tiny. I didn't see them in there, but how do they taste different than the leaf?
They have a much more mild flavor. It's more of a textural component. You kind of soak them in water and they sort of bloom immediately. And they kind of look like little alien eggs, but they're nice. They add a little nice texture.
Kind of like chia?
Kind of, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of texture, there was so much texture going on in that dish. It was just so fun. And burnt eggplant, it was like a paste, right?
Yeah. So that recipe, I've had the privilege to work under some of the most talented chefs when it comes to vegetables in the country. Both Carlo Maracci at Blanca and Roberta's, and before that, Paul Lebrant at Corton. And both of them were like wizards in their own right when it came to vegetables. So I always feel that our vegetable dishes that are probably some of the least ordered things on the menu, but I think for our diehards, those are like, everyone would say those are the most underrated dishes on our menu. And I learned a lot under those guys. And that burnt eggplant puree, for example, is something that we did at Corton. And then when I was sort of the understudy of the chef de cuisine. I was at Blanca, who I'd worked with at Corton. We brought that recipe over at Blanca, and we had tweaked it. And then I've done the same over here. It's funny that you bring that up because that's like the story of my lineage there. So,
well, I think that's important that I think context.
Hopefully one of my cooks takes it on, opens a restaurant, and takes it over there someday.
That's right. But having that context, of a dish like that really sets it. And this restaurant really is all about context. It's very much your point of view here in Tampa of Italian food. And you were just mentioning to me off mic, a fire, a flood. This is your first restaurant.
Yeah. It's been a whirlwind.
And that is all. I mean, just saying it's your first restaurant is enough, right? Without all of that. Post-COVID, that's a lot right there.
Yeah.
And we've known about this world for a long time, but I think listeners are getting excited about high-end dining because of The Bear and seeing like that show and all the work that goes into it. And even though it's not 100% realistic, it's pretty darn close.
It's very realistic. And in fact, I haven't watched the second season. I watched the first season, and then I started watching the second season, and it's just like a little bit too on the nose, and it's kind of brought up some
it's a trigger.
Trauma and scar tissue and and some good stuff, but from my past that I've read, fortunately mostly forgotten about.
Mm-hmm.
And it's I'll probably take the time to watch it later on, but sometimes it's a little too much, especially when I'm like right after getting into the heat of a service and then going home. You want something a little bit not in the kitchen,
right?
So yeah, but I'm glad people are getting it because before that, man, it was like the movie Burnt and things like that were just so. I'm sure. When like doctors watch, Grey's Anatomy or something like that,
they're dying.
They're just like, oh my god, this is such bullcrap.
Right.
The only movies before that on film that actually captured it was Ratatouille, and that's about it. So
yeah, Ratatouille is a good film.
Ratatouille will get me a little emotional at the end. It's good.
It is good. I'm glad you're saying that because I've had that private feeling, but I haven't been able to publicly express it until now. Yeah.
Ratatouille is the truth.
The feeling of, that climbing a mountain, that pace, and you're going to get in the weeds, and a fire, a flood, your first restaurant, you were telling me, I had 14-hour days. It's kind of the standard 20-hour days sometimes or
there was
more.
Been times.
So that's such a juxtaposition from what I tasted on your plate, which is so joyful. Can we talk instead of the struggle for a minute about the joy in the kind of cooking that you do? Because I just tasted that on the plate, especially like in the spaghetti dish. Even, having the gelato at the end, the pairings were very vibrant. So there's just a very clear point of view.
I think I've even though there's been some struggle and some strife in my culinary career and my life in general, I've been very fortunate. A lot of guys that I've worked with and people out there, have had really, they have broken families and whatever, and I've for the most part had a lot of support. My parents bought a house that's like 5 blocks from Roca. I see them almost every day. I think they work at Roca more than I do. My brother lives a couple blocks down too. So I have a family there. For the most part, my partners, my investors have been extremely supportive and helpful, and an amazing staff. And I've had, all these life experiences from, growing up in Tampa to moving and having a lot of friends. And when I went to school at Auburn University, and then I went up to New York, which was, a trip in itself between culinary school and working in the city. And then I had the opportunity and the privilege to be in Italy for the better part of a year. And I've traveled around a ton, growing up. My dad would take the family to all over the world. I think the only continent I haven't been is Antarctica, which I'm sure one day.
Yeah,
but,
one day.
Yeah, so a lot of great life experiences that there's a lot of pain and sadness and all that stuff in any artist, but whatever. But no, there's a lot of joy too.
Did you have other mediums as an artist before you started?
I cringe at when I said artist because I sort of say it half jokingly. It's, but because there's also...
It is a craft.
It's a craft more than anything. And there's some art on the plate and there's an art to what we do, but you're also like a businessman, almost a mechanic. You're an engineer and you're all sorts of things. Your hat is in every single thing you can think of. And I also joke around that I'm everyone's psychologist at work too.
That is very true.
I need to get my own one of those.
But seriously, when we talk about, it's a dedication, I think, that you continue to aspire to, the people that you've worked under. There has to be a worth in food. I don't get to talk like theoretically a lot with chefs. And so I feel like, would you be willing to kind of unpack as much as you can or want to a little bit about why food is an important medium for your expression? I think expressive is better than artistic, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think like I said, I'm glad that I think I have a lot of personality on my plate. If it just, I don't know if there's a rhyme or a reason. It just makes sense to me. It makes sense to me. But I think food's always been a point of joy for me and the people that I want to be around. And, I think what do we want to do at the end of the day? We want to
sit down, have a glass of wine
and eat some good food.
Yeah.
Like, as the older I get too, it's like, maybe there's a sports game on or whatever, but when you're looking at a new city to go to, like, what do you want? R&R, and you want to go out and eat good, and that's about it.
Right. So there's just sourcing that has to happen. And I think being from Tampa and really this city is coming into its own as far as being a major food city in the U.S., right? Don't you think?
Absolutely. I think it's on a pretty meteoric rise. And I think it's just the tip of the iceberg. I think we're about to see in the next 4 or 5 years, it's going to you saw it happen to Miami. You've seen it happen to LA too. And we're obviously not the size and scope of Miami or LA, but where they were at 7 or 8 years ago to where they are at now in terms of a food scene is wildly dramatically different. I think Tampa is going to see quite a bit of that boost. I think Orlando is doing it is like a year or two ahead of us too, and just the dramatic difference that they are over the last 4 or 5 years is insane.
Right, and it takes a while for the general collective consciousness to kind of catch up with that.
Yeah,
because
I think Tampa's always had a great food scene in general. I think it's had an underrated food scene. I think there are reasons why people, and rightfully so, have nitpicked or booed on Tampa a little bit. They say, we do the home of the chain restaurants and stuff like that. Well, it's like,
Bloomin' Brands is based here.
Bob Basham is one of my partners.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of respect for him. And when I see what he's done on paper, it's insane.
Right.
How many, and listen, there's all these restaurants I follow on Instagram, the little tiny spots in New York and this and that, and the food is amazing, whatever. But, they're serving like 50 people a night. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you're serving.
I'm serving about anywhere from 250 to 320 a night, but depending on how busy we are. But I just remember talking to Bob one day about what year was the most Outbacks you guys opened in 1 year? Mm-hmm. I forgot what it was, but it was like in the high. It was almost 200, and that was like back in the 90s, where like before we all had smartphones and emails and all that stuff.
Right.
At our fingertips.
It was one of my number one dating places, in my 20s.
I will go to Outback right now
and enjoy
a bloomin' onion, a French onion soup. They do it right.
They know what to do.
If you can't enjoy that, maybe there's something wrong with you.
Exactly. I remember there was a time when I would get the bloomin' onion and a salad with honey mustard dressing as a light lunch, and then one day I was like,
how many calories are in that?
What is going on? Why am I blowing up? The idea of Tampa and the idea of sourcing, and you're talking about like your mom having the garlic flowers or having the eggplant, having some of the ingredients. What are some of the things being from Tampa that, besides like the blue crab on the spaghetti the other night,
right,
very Tampa, that really say Tampa to you that you feel like you can really incorporate here at this restaurant?
That's a good question. I think it's I think we sneak some Latin ingredients into our menu secretly, and there's also some Vietnamese ingredients that are snuck in there too,
like fish sauce in that salad.
I tell people that off the record, well, I guess we're going on the record here, that I am 100% certain that we go through more fish sauce than any other Italian restaurant in the world. I'm 100% sure of that. Yeah, we kind of sneak it in everything. If it's not that, it's anchovies. And if it's not that, it's Parmesan Reggiano or Pecorino
Which is all
Romano.
that umami level.
It's umami
right?
and salt.
Yeah.
That's what you want.
Yeah.
And you balance it with acid and sugar. It's not rocket science.
So fish sauce or Latin flavors, and of course the seafood and stuff.
Yeah. There's lots of little nods to Tampa throughout the menu, even though we're not trying to like go out of our way to say that. It's I think if you're just it just makes sense on time and place.
Did you always want to put your restaurant back here when you decided to open a restaurant? Because you could have opened anywhere.
I wasn't. Oh, thank you. I wasn't really even sure I was going to open it. I didn't come to Tampa even thinking I was going to open an Italian restaurant. When I moved back from New York, I was just burnt out after working in Blanca. And I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I was living back home for a few weeks, thinking about, I went to go stage at the French Laundry. I was thinking about I was like, man, if I get a job there, which I got an offer, which was great, just hate my life and work there for a year, but then I'll be able to get any investor I want with my resume.
Right.
I even went down to Guatemala for like the better part of 2 months to court and cook for some investors down there. And discussions were pretty far along. And then I came back to Tampa, and I was just eating at a couple restaurants with my parents and sort of looking at the food scene around here. And I was like, man, there's a wide open market for like a pasta-focused Italian restaurant. Not that there aren't a few already, but, that sells pretty well. And I just thought, I was like, I can go in and open the place, and I think I'll do pretty well here. So luckily, very shortly after that, I met one of my investors, Nick Reeder, cooked a dinner for him. He said, all right, we'll come back and do another dinner. I did that again. And he's like, what do you want? And I was like, I don't know. I think I want to open an Italian restaurant, but I don't think I'm ready to. I think I need to go to Italy for a while, like a year or so. And he said, all right, well, you help us consult for PDQ, which is another chain here, for a little while. And then we'll send you to Italy. And then when you get back, we'll open your restaurant together.
Fun.
I was like, can we spit on that?
You're like, can I go now?
Deal, yeah. Yeah, exactly. No, I think that was key. I think going to Italy for that time and just being able to just shut myself off from everything, that is where I got my voice, though. Like, I knew how to cook everything. Before I got to Italy, I knew how to make pasta. I knew whatever, but I think the time alone, like, because I didn't really have much Wi-Fi access or anything like that. I think that was really crucial to developing a voice. Just, I don't know if there's like a math to it, but
and you can't think about developing a voice. You just have to.
No,
be
it just
open.
has to occur.
Right. You have to be open to the environment.
I think that was very crucial, and I think I've developed that voice more and more as Roca's been open and being more confident with what we do. Because I think when we look at our opening menu and we were cooking, I was a lot more conservative and with what the people. What people wanted. There's meatballs on the menu. There's calamari on the menu, they were good. I mean, I still crave that stuff. Everybody does, but
I crave that the puff with the copa on top.
Oh yeah, the gnocco frito.
Yeah, right now I'm thinking, wow, it's like 4:00. I could really go for like two of those. Let
me turn on the fryer and get those going. I think after we got shut down with COVID and we were. Like I said, I'm not going to go too far into the details. We had a fire 2 days after we reopened and then knocked us out for a long time. And then right when we were about to reopen for that, we had a flood. So we were just knocked out for a while. And I was basically had to come out guns blazing. And we just cooked what we wanted to cook, what I wanted to do originally. And I think and then Tampa's received it. And like we've gotten more and more people here, very happy people. Not everyone gets it, but the restaurant's full every single night. I think you could look on Resy; it's like booked out for like 2 months.
Yeah.
So it's obviously we've been received well, and that's like the best joy you could have in your heart about that. It's like I can do this.
Yeah. Were you surprised at the star?
So when I opened Roca, I never thought that would be a possibility. And when they announced the Michelin Guide was coming to Tampa, I was like, huh. Because you look at our restaurant, and we're not exactly prototypical Michelin star. We're not a tasting menu restaurant, which is almost 99% of Michelin star restaurants. We don't have our tasting menu. We're huge by comparison to most other Michelin star restaurants. We're 155 seats. I think most Michelin star restaurants are 40, 50 at most, 60.
Right.
And then on top of that, we're Italian restaurant, which you would think would be a lot of Michelin stars, but there's only like 10 or so Italian restaurants in the country that have a Michelin star. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And we got a bib to start. I think it's extremely rare statistically for a bib to jump out of that and get a star. So, I don't know. I am a little surprised. They had gotten my hopes up really high because they were inviting us to this thing. And I just didn't think we were qualified to get a bib because of our price point, which I don't know if we still are. I don't know if you're listening, Michelin, but no, I
Don't change it. Don't change it.
Let's keep that star. I was very happy.
Yeah, good. Well, what is making you hungry now? What's percolating, settled from all of that kind of natural disaster stuff? Now you're here. Tampa's responding. The larger culinary community is responding amazingly to your work. What's happening now? What are you thinking?
The energy and the driving force now is we have a really good team here. We've got some people that I want to continue to grow their careers and underneath me, and I don't want them to become a competition, to be frank. So we actually have 3/4 projects under the way.
Wow.
Which is a lot, I know, but we only were planning on doing one, and then literally back to back two that were like after years of looking for a second restaurant location, which we were like B-, C+, D-, not a B+, probably a B location, but there's some strings attached type stuff, and just never felt really right about it. I would say 2 A++ locations, which I can't go into too much further detail about, fell into our lap like immediately, like unrelatedly, that we're like, we cannot say no to that. So it's a lot. I've got some hired guns coming to help. That'll be the focus going forward. That's what's making me hungry, and the drive to not only build on our success and really sort of plant the flag here in Tampa and grow our little empire, but to the main motivation behind that, I mean, obviously financial things is great and all, but the real motivation for me is to provide growing room for the people that are working so hard underneath me, so that they can have their name on the menu and they can they can get their dreams come true, and maybe they can get a star.
Yeah. Or they can express their voice.
Exactly.
Right.
Hopefully there's some joy on the menu.
Right. What is one aspect of this job that you've chosen for yourself that really meshes with an aspect of your natural personality?
That's a good question. I think my personality, I've always been able to get along with lots of walks of life. I can sit there in a boardroom and you look at me, I'm not a puffy jacket wearing Wall Street guy, but I can there in front of some businessman and the stereotypical guys and chat them up and make them feel good about me and whatever. But I can also, whether it's my dishwasher or or a line cook or anybody, I feel like I can get along with them and relate to them, and I think that's really important for what I do, and I think that's why I think Roka is partially why Roka is successful.
Yeah. What is one thing keeping you up at night? Quick fire.
How much time do we have? Because I've got about 25 things keeping me up at night right now.
Let's do two.
All right. The two things is first is like what we talked about before. Opening these restaurants it takes a long time. It's quite a process with the city and permitting and construction, all that stuff. And I just don't want it to take so long that we stunt these guys' growth underneath us. That's keeping me up at night. And two, now I've got a Michelin star to defend, and we can't lose it now. So I got the added pressure of that to even wig out even more about. So those are two things that are keeping me up at night, along with 25 other things.
Just remember the joy. Because I had a lot of joy. I was busting it to get here for a lot of reasons. There was a wreck on the Sunshine Skyway. So I was running the whole time trying to make it here. And then when I got here, there was some kind of festival and I got stuck over there. In that. So when I came here, I was in a completely different mindset. And I sat down, and after like a couple bites, by the second course, it shifted. And I talk to chefs all the time, and they say, it's so rewarding to have that shift. Yeah. But I rarely come into a restaurant in a negative mindset because I love them so much.
Yeah.
So it was unusual for me to come in that space, but to experience the shift, I think was worth it because I was just like giddy by the third course.
Right.
So I was just like,
Well,
I'm
that's
so
awesome.
glad to be here. This last question is something I reserved just for Southern Fork guests, and that is my magic picnic basket question. I used to ask death row meal question, and then it started to catch in my throat because I don't believe in the death penalty. So I'm switching this, and I now ask, or I have switched this, and I now ask about some foods that bring you life. So with this magic picnic basket, I can time travel. I can go back and ask anybody to make one more bite of something you wish you had. I can source for you, and I can cook a little bit, though I am very bad at pasta, which I don't think you need me to cook for you. I think you've got that down. I would love to put some things together in a basket for you. It doesn't have to be a traditional picnic. I know that food people actually, that shifts and changes with the seasons, what you're hungry for, what you've eaten this week. Just some stuff that brings you life. What can I put in there?
Well, even though I love Italian food and there always will be, I love French food and I love Greek food and Spanish food and lots of Mediterranean food, but I also love lots of different Asian food, and I usually find myself eating dim sum on my off days. So lots of different dim sum dumplings and
soup dumpling.
Oh yeah, if you can get them, there's a better spot up in New York, but there's a couple spots out here that do them well. But lots of dim sum would be nice. I also love Colombian food, some empanadas and some morcilla blood sausage in there would be very good too.
Great. And do you have a beverage of choice that you like? Or
Yeah,
just
I've
right
gone
now?
full circle. I don't know I think if you see someone order vodka on the rocks with a splash of soda water, you're either this person doesn't like anything and is basic AF, or they've just gone through the whole circle of life and now they're just I think I drink that mostly because I've just been tasting fatty, salty food all night and I just don't want to taste anything anymore. Yeah. I'm on sensory overload.
Yeah, your brain is full.
So yeah, but no, I'm a big wine nerd, so I got a lot of wine at home, and I think wine's a big part of Roca too. We have 2 sommeliers. Brandon does a fantastic job with the list, and that'll always be a part of the restaurant.
It was amazing.
A smart, savvy wine program as well,
and very joyful too. Different things, small producers.
It's hard not to get really excited and smile when you're talking about Italian wine.
Exactly. Well, if people want to learn more about Roca and the delicious food that's coming out of the kitchen here, you know where to go. You can go to thesouthernfork.com. I'm going to have links there as well as images so you can see the face behind the voice. If you like what you hear, there are more than 325 episodes in the archives. And I will tell you, I've talked about pasta before, but I cannot wait to have your food again. So thank you so much for taking the time on, I know, a busy day, and I appreciate it. I look forward to coming in just to enjoy and take an Uber because I'm going to have more wine next time.
Well, we would love to have you back anytime. Thank you for all the kind words, and thanks for having me on your show.
Hello and welcome to Talking with My Mouth Full. If you're like me, many of us, when we think of Tampa, we really think of modern, like skyscrapers, like modern high-rise apartments and hotels, modern marinas lining the bay. And all of that is true. There is a lot of concrete and glass in Tampa. And Tampa is, in a lot of ways, shiny and new. There's a very vibrant downtown that has a lot of new development. Where Roca is, that is a new building, but it is in an established neighborhood, the Tampa Heights neighborhood. And I've been to Tampa a lot through the years, but not in a few years. And so on this trip, I really wanted to get a little more context for the city, and I wanted to explore the neighborhood. So Tampa Heights, Roca, and then you, if you follow along on Instagram, you saw me explore Ybor City, and you're going to be hearing more about that coming up soon. And then about 10 minutes away from Tampa Heights, that's by car. Seems like everybody has a car in Tampa. There's a lot of traffic. About 10 minutes away is an area called Hyde Park. And Hyde Park had never been on my radar before this trip, and I was so pleasantly surprised. It's a neighborhood that's a historic neighborhood. It was laid out in the 1880s. So we're talking my kind of turn-of-the-century residential architecture, tree-lined streets, very quaint. It's a great place to walk your dog. It's a great place to bike around. And one of the big anchors of that part of that neighborhood is Hyde Park Village. And Hyde Park Village is essentially an outdoor mall. And if you're familiar traveling in the South, you know this kind of development. It's very walkable. Hyde Park Village has been around for a long time, and so there are some original buildings. They're incorporated into this bigger development. There's a fountain there, so you can really explore Hyde Park if you want. But if you want just a little more passive introduction to the neighborhood as a whole, Hyde Park Village is a great place to start. I had a wonderful morning there, walking around, and I liked that there were some local places and the mix of restaurants, individual restaurants, as well as some chain retail places. And then I also enjoyed that the developers have commissioned artists to create pieces of art. And so that really adds to the ambiance of the village. There's this cute little shop. I saw an adorable houseplant shop, but thankfully I could not purchase houseplants while I was on the tour. So I didn't spend any money there, but man, it looked like I could. And then there was this little gourmet olive oil shop and like gourmet food shop called Fig and Julep. And I came home with some Hyde Park rosé wine vinegar, and, man, it's delicious. I've already used a lot of it on my summer produce since I've returned. So if you are headed to Tampa anytime soon, and I'm guessing if you are, you're going to go to Roca, you might want to put Hyde Park Village on your radar as well. In the meantime, I will be right here next week chatting with you, and safe travels until I talk to you again.
You've been listening to The Southern Fork. I can't wait to bring you more culinary conversations, but in the meantime, I have one question. Are you going to eat all that?